What's up, fellow benchwarmers? Welcome back to Season 5 Fans Benchwarmers. My name is JJT. As always, with our Komish. Komish, how are you? It's been a long break,
Long
I
break.
guess.
Yeah,
And
we did have some episodes about some movements. I think we did have that
yeah,
about. I think
the
summarizing the
trades,
fantasy
yeah,
effect.
but that's a few months ago, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess we're on season 5.
Season 5, yeah, officially Season 5. Well, I guess it's the fourth full season. Is it the fourth? No, the third full season.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know why
think.
it's season 5. Why is it season 5? We've had 4 or 5 seasons. Anyway, um, it's season 5 this year, this time of the year, and at this time of the year, it's already closer to that fantasy season, fantasy craze once again. It's not yet there, but we're preparing for that. Usually it's around September, so when you release this, it's around September already. So the draft is going to be crazy in the next few weeks, months, in the next couple of months. So today we're going to talk about some pre-draft strategies, things that you need to know, I guess, prepare, how to prepare for your drafts, and not just your drafts, but what process goes through, especially for managers like Komish, who I'm sure has been preparing. Have you prepared for your drafts?
Not yet, not much. Starting to, but haven't really, gone through more in depth preparations. I guess it's still early. There's still some moves we're waiting for.
Actually, it seems like this preseason is a bit, how do you call this? It's not yet done. It feels like there's still something missing. Um, Everyone
Yeah,
might be waiting for the Dame Lillard, James Harden situation
yeah.
here and there, but it seems like there's something lacking or something missing during the preseason.
There seems to be some moves yet to be done. As you said, Lillard and Harden. That's two very. I think if those deals go through, I think those will be the biggest game changers of the whole off season, and it's still hanging. So maybe that's why we feel like it's hard. Lots of uncertainties. PJ Washington was just signed, I think, a
Yeah,
couple of
and
days ago.
it seems like you don't know you've forgotten who are the players that are not yet signed or are still free agents at this point, right? Everyone,
Yeah.
it's we will probably talk about those things later on. But since draft has started already for some, I've learned that there are some leagues that have started drafting already. I guess this is a good time to talk about pre-draft preparation. But I hope it. Do you draft? Do you think it's okay to draft this early?
No, I never want to be in a league that drafts early, but it's also fun because there is a lot of
Uncertainties.
and yeah, lots of values that you can get, because even the rankings are still all over the place. Depth charts are not final. There's no training camp yet. We don't know who
Yeah.
on some teams. We don't know who starts. Who is in the rotation. So you can get lucky. You can get lucky when you draft early. If you gamble correctly. Well, some people will say they studied it well. They analyze well. But I think even how good you are in analyzing depth charts or whatever, there's still some luck involved when you draft this early.
Now you mentioned earlier that you haven't really done some very detailed preparation. But what do you usually go? How do you usually go for your draft? Because honestly, for me, I don't prepare as much. That's honestly, I know we talk about. I mean, this is my preparation. We talk about episodes here, players here. That's my preparation. That's how I sometimes realize or learn that how how I should be drafting, especially when we do league drafts. Wherein I'm part of a lot of league drafts and our FBW league, so I get to see the trends, the patterns here and there. Um, what goes on? What do you look for? I don't
I think
prepare as
it's
much. Even yeah, maybe you could say one or two things that you do.
no, you said it right. Trends and patterns, and what's happening in usually in drafts. You get it wherever, however you get it. You get it by joining a lot of drafts. You know, a lot of you get what's happening because you join so many different leagues or
But
drafts or mock drafts.
mock
Yeah,
drafts, for example, if you
yeah.
because in my case, it's an actual league that I where I observe what the patterns are, where players are being drafted. We have like 14, 15 leagues that we're drafting in. I can really see where these players are there. By the time I'm in the sixth, seventh league, you know where these certain players go. Um, but mock drafts, that's usually the only way. Not everyone has 14, 15 leagues that they can, go through. Mock drafts, is that a good gauge? Because sometimes, if it's not full, it's hard to
Um,
gauge where the players go.
there are mock drafts that some personalities organize. You can also organize one with some friends, or you can find some drafts that are full. You know, choose because mock drafts are like in Yahoo. It's like every 3 4 minutes, 5 minutes. You know, as you can see, there's
Yeah.
some 18, 10 team, 12 team, 14 team. So you can really take your time in finding the right one. Even and sometimes even if they're not full, they can still help you can still help you see which players are usually in that range where you're drafting. So it helps. It can still help. It will still help actually. Joining a lot of mock drafts will really help you. There's no other
How
way around.
many is a lot? How many is a good
There's
number?
even if you do before I could do 3 4 5 a day. I mean it's fast. Mock drafts are fast, so it doesn't matter how many you really join. But for me, if you do one maybe 2 or 3 a day, it's okay. I mean
And
that's enough.
how big does that help? How
A lot.
is it a big
It
or
helps a
you
lot.
go because sometimes the latter part of the mock drafts are not as useful already because some managers leave,
Yeah,
some managers
yeah.
go to auto draft. Um,
No,
how
when we join a mock draft, the experience helps. Like you see how it comes out in the actual draft. That helps. Number one. Number two, you can see the rankings better. No, you can more or less scan through the rankings, like those in the 200s, the 300s. You can find them. You can look at it better during the mock drafts. So plus the fact that you can. What I do usually is I try being the first pick, second pick, third pick. I try every pick,
every pick?
but every pick, but
Yeah,
I don't do it every day like first pick, second pick. I do first pick today, tomorrow maybe the second pick and the
yeah.
third pick. Yeah, so every day different
Not in one day.
position.
Not in one day.
Not in one day and not every. You don't have to do it every day. Sometimes you do first pick, 2 days until you really get kind of the gauge of who you can get with the first pick. So you can do that and
The
then take a
first pick
break.
is easy. The first pick is
Well,
easy. I think the harder parts are the middle picks. Because the
yeah,
first, picks, it's going to be the usual suspects, the usual guys, except maybe, as I saw the rankings, the latter part of the first round would probably be a little more tricky because of some new names, or some old names that are not reliable anymore. We'll talk more about those later on. But I think it's easy when you do a mock draft. The first few picks are easy, but the next, the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, I think those are the crucial ones to monitor because those are where the values are. Those are where you see the rankings, like
actually,
you said.
the first pick is easy because it's Jokic. But what I really like to get from mock drafts is the combination. The first three rounds, basically, one, two, three, who would you get? Who would you pair? Who will be there for you to pair with Jokic?
Yeah.
Who will be there for you to pair with the number two pick? What combinations can you get realistically on certain positions? Because I think that's really, really one of the, for me, the most key core. Building the core of your team is really, really very key. I mean, Jokic, yes. But if you're like on a 14 team, who's gonna come back? Because as you said, later, first, maybe second, the whole second round, it can go all over the place.
Yeah.
So you have to think of, okay, who will be there at 28, or maybe if you're in a 12 team at 24, 25. So you have 124, 25, or 128, 29. You have to nail that for me, so that you can maximize, let's say, Nikola Jokic. So that's very important for me. Mock drafts, that's one of the biggest thing, underrated thing that you can get, is trying out different combinations. No, pairing, different pairings, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
And maybe
very important.
seeing how the build would turn out, right?
Yeah,
And not just
yeah.
the pairing, it's not just the first two picks, first two rounds, but like I said earlier, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth round until maybe up to the 10th round are crucial because that's how you build the team.
Example, you started with a point guard, let's say Lamelo, and then you paired in, thinking of pairing him with another point guard, but you decided against it and went with, let's say, Jaren Jackson. And then in the third round, you were thinking, okay, I'll just add an assist guy in the third. And when you get to your third round spot,
There's none.
suddenly there's not
There's none
much
available.
assist guys already. Instead of,
Yeah.
if you're gonna get a point guard, it's reaching already because the best point guards are still way behind. So it puts you in a dilemma. So now if you do a mock draft, you will know na, yeah. When the third round comes, the players usually there are these kinds of players, maybe big men,
Yeah.
or those with uh, scorers. So not much
You'll be
assists.
able to see
Yeah,
which round has a scarcity in certain categories, certain stats, certain positions, maybe because there might be rounds like in the past few years, the centers go out. By the fifth, sixth round, probably won't have any quality centers right by then. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
should be targeting a center by the third, fourth. That those are in the past few years. I am not talking about this year because this year might have changed a bit. There might be some value centers here and there, right there in the latter rounds. But that's the point of what commission is saying. There might be some that could help you understand which rounds are harder to pick guards, which rounds are harder to pick centers, which rounds are which categories are not as abundant when it comes to drafting. So that's the mock draft. I'm pretty sure one of the key things that you have to do to prepare for your drafts is draw some mock drafts. Now talked about rankings. Do rankings matter, Komish? Do the rank no? Maybe the better question is, does the platform ranking matter, or should you have your own rankings, or which ranking should you follow?
Well, there are a lot of rankings
I know.
like Brewski's, 150,
Yeah.
ESPN, Yahoo, Josh Lloyd has his own rankings. They are guides, They are guides. I don't know which one you guys prefer more. Of course, you have your own preferences, but they are guides and they're important. But you should have your own rankings for sure. Maybe not rankings because it's really
Up to which number? Up to 100? Top
I
100?
before I do it until at least 120, 130, around those range, and after that, actually even top 100, and after 100, let's say you just find players that, because after 100, rankings for me doesn't really matter anymore. After 100, it's about upside, about there will be a lot of mistakes in rankings after
Yeah.
100. No matter which rankings you follow, there will be a lot of mistakes after 100. So after 100, maybe just find the players you believe in, you think will really have a breakout season, or will be the sleepers. So those are the players you target. But in the top 100, it's better to have your clear rankings. Maybe another thing, these guys, the Josh Lloyds, the Brewskis, everything, they have rankings based on their projections. So they do projections, they really project the stats of these players and they rank it accordingly. So they study it very well. Now, us or you guys will find it hard to just rank players. I mean, based on that,
Yeah.
because you don't have the time to project your, give your own projection. So I think tiers will be better. Like, tier one, let's say,
Guard.
who's your tier one, who's your tier
Yeah.
two. So at least you'll not you'll be able to have a choice of
Wait,
players
when you
already.
say tiers, are there tiers per possession?
You could have tiers per position, yes. That's good if you have tiers per position. You can also have tiers based on overall, as in all positions together. You can have that also. You can have both. Sometimes I think before I had both. When you don't have that much time, you just have one. Whatever
Mm.
helps you. I usually don't do the position thing anymore because uh really are like there's one center leagues and it depends on the setting of your leagues, no. But I just do it together in as a whole. Just put some tiers there at this top 15, then after that, 16, 30, 35. Let's say like that, and then the mid range, these are the guys
Yeah.
I will consider, something like that. So they're
Yeah.
important
Now,
because you have to have a gauge. But they
no,
do not
also
follow.
important is your conviction in those rankings if you make
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Don't just make it in 1 minute. Like, oh, this one, this.
No,
You have
because
to think about it.
yeah,
You
you
have to
have to
think about
think
it.
really hard about it because
Yes.
if not, you'll get influenced by the platform rankings during the drafts, right? Because there
Yeah.
are a few rankings during the drafts. There's a couple of rankings in the draft, or maybe the ADPs. You get a little more affected by the ADPs. Although the ADPs are a bit, I think I follow the ADPs a little more in terms of seeing where certain players are drafted. At least I know I can wait another round or two before reaching certain players. We'll talk more about that during draft day actual draft day strategies. But yeah, I think the conviction is key because you can
And
get swayed. I'm pretty sure
and
you'll get swayed.
yeah, and I think there are certain players that you have to really study before the draft. Let's say, this season when Banyama. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of people will say top 15, some people say top
rookies,
25.
a lot of
Yeah,
rookies.
rookies, but especially this season with Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, maybe. Some people will say top 35. Some people, nah, too early. I'll pick him 50. It's too risky, too this. You cannot debate that on draft day itself. Before the draft comes, you already have to know, nah, I'll be comfortable picking him at this spot. Let's say 25, he's still there. 20, 25 to 30, he's still there. I'll pick him. For sure, I'll pick him. Don't, that gives you, removes all the thinking during the draft day because you already thought about it. So that's why tiers and rankings are important. Making your own tiers and rankings are important because you will have to think about it. I mean, will I put
Yeah,
when B in tier one, tier two, tier three? You have to think about it, and you have to, as Jeremy said, the conviction of, I'll put him tier two. Let's say, something
but
like that.
I'll be honest, I don't do rankings. I just follow whatever the rankings are in Yahoo. But of course, there are some. Maybe I've played fantasy a little long enough to somehow just rely on those. Um, but again, there are certain players. I've played it long enough to the point that there are certain players I'm comfortable picking at this spot. There are certain players I'm comfortable not picking at this spot. Maybe there's bias there, but I just follow the platform rank, and I think it's going to be fine. But again, if you're maybe starting out, it's nice to have your own rankings
And
because if
also,
you're starting out, it's going to be hard to follow the platform rankings only.
rankings will show you the players you like.
Yeah,
But rankings should also show you the players you don't like, the players you will not
yeah,
draft, the players you just, I don't know, the Jimmy Butlers, I don't know, whoever that you're not gonna draft. Like I
We'll
feel it.
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about picking players on a draft another episode. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You'll be able to see the different players because if you rank them, you probably remove them from your ranks.
Well, I will put them in my ranks. I will put them in my ranks because let's say
But
Zion. I've been burned by Zion a lot of times already. But I'll put him in the ranks because let's say Zion falls in a certain rank, like 45, 50, maybe whatever. Whatever is it for you. Then even if you don't like him, that's value. And fantasy drafting is all about value. All about really getting value at the spot. So
which
you put
spot
him
which spot is
exactly.
worth the headache? Which spot is
The
worth the
point
headache?
is if Zion for you is worth 100, put him there. I mean, very, very unlikely he's gonna be there at 100, but that's how you rank. The fact is, if he's there at 100, somehow falls there at 100, then you pick him there. If that's okay for you, if you really do not like to draft him at in any range, then yes, like Jeremy said, you put him in the do
Or
not
put him
draft.
in 150. I'm pretty sure at 150 you're gonna draft him already,
But yeah,
regardless of.
but I usually don't like to put do not draft players, because sometimes, as you said, because they fall and fall and fall and fall, there's really value there already. So just put them there, just put them low enough to where you're comfortable picking them. And again, as Jeremy said, ranking tiers, they help. They help you, form the players that you want to and you don't want to draft.
Yeah. So the best is, create your own rankings and follow that rankings. But in case, the easiest way is to follow the platform rankings.
Yeah,
Um, and of course, the other rankings like the Brewski 100, 150, the Basketball Monster rank, the other, hardcore fantasy sites which post their rankings, those are paid rankings. That means you have to pay, most of it you have to pay to
yeah.
get the rankings, right? Because they do more research on that. So that's why it's a little more accurate, I guess, when it comes to their rankings versus the Yahoo rankings, for example. It's a little more skewed, the Yahoo or the platform rankings.
But be careful also. Sometimes you get really too, those rankings might put some bias into your head that, hey, sleeper, 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 sleeper. And then, even if you really don't think there should be the sleeper, you suddenly say, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You,
Brewski said this, Josh Lloyd said this. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, after you draft them and then they become bust, you think about it. Hey, why did I draft this guy? You were not able to think it through because you just listened to these experts. So, there's sometimes it's
are
like
you
that.
questioning these experts?
No, I'm not questioning the expert. I'm just saying that sometimes when you listen to just one expert, it can have some bias, put some bias into your head. So I suggest listening or checking a lot.
Looking at different perspectives.
Yeah, different
Listen
perspectives,
to this
different.
perspective, listen to this perspective, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
decide on which perspective makes sense for you. It may not make sense, some perspectives may not make sense for you, but that perspective may make sense for, let's say, if it makes sense for me, it might make sense for Eric, for Kumesh. So,
Plus, if Josh Lloyd, let's say, likes one player, he's not a sleeper anymore. The sleepers of these experts will not be sleepers anymore because everybody will know about it, and then their ranks will go up. So that's another way of preparing. If these guys know that, if these guys say that these are sleepers, for sure the ranks of those guys will go up, way way up.
yeah, the,
So
the
sometimes don't
ADPs will go up.
yeah, do not try to chase it. Sometimes, okay, I'll be prepared that I will not be getting these guys all the time. Sometimes they will fall to me, sometimes they won't. So you'll be prepared. You'll not go into a draft just chasing, oh, this, because they said these are the sleepers. I'll just get all of them, even if they're
Yeah.
30 ranks ahead, 20 ranks ahead. So
So you
yeah,
have
that
to
helps also.
remember as well. You have to remember as well. Sleepers is not by name. Like We don't throw out a name and say he's a sleeper. We throw out a name and think he's a sleeper because he's being picked way lower than he should be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if let's say I throw in a name like Zion, for example, just since we threw out that name, he's probably not a sleeper at, let's say, at 30, right? He's not a sleeper. Maybe he could be of value there, but if he drops to, let's say, um 20, 40, 60, 70, he might be a sleeper at that range, right? A
He
player
will
might
be a
not be a
sleeper
sleeper,
at that
right?
range
So
at the 60s. Yeah.
the sleeper is based on their current value. So if people think they're lower than their current value, then that means they're a sleeper. But by
I
the
think
time that the draft comes in, during the draft, if they were drafted higher than their current rank, they are not sleepers anymore. They probably you drafted them off value, just in right value, or maybe a little too high.
the name should the term should be breakout players. Players who
Yeah.
will break out, and those are the guys that even if they're picked 25, 30, or whatever, they'll just break out. But doesn't mean that the value is good. It really depends. It really depends on where you pick them.
So yeah, those are the rankings. That's another two. There's a couple already. The rankings and the mock drafts, they go hand in hand because that's where you see,
And the
um, uh,
experts, and listening to the
yeah,
experts. Yeah, listening to the experts.
listening to the experts. We're not experts here. We're just throwing out some listening to the more experts who do this on a full time basis, right? Um, Other factors that you might want to consider: settings of your league, right? You have
Yeah,
to
I
understand
mean
the settings.
that's the most basic of basic. I mean, you should
Yeah.
know the setting of your leagues. I mean, we're talking about positions right away. How many centers are in your league? How many guards? How
To
many
be
point guards?
honest, we've had so many leagues. We've got so many managers, and I've encountered a lot of managers joining our leagues. We throw out the settings already even before they join, even before they pay. But sometimes they just don't read it. Go
They don't
to
care. Sometimes
Yeah,
they
they
don't care.
don't look into it. They don't research what are the settings, right? We even throw out the roster spots that we're given that we have in those leagues. Like we have only a one center league. All of our leagues have one center league. Then they pick a bunch of centers early on, and then they realize, oops, wait, I picked too much centers. It's just a
Yeah.
one center league. I didn't know or expect that, right? So I think these are really minor stuff, small stuff that would matter if you know.
Well, I wouldn't say they're minor. I think they're very important. They're very important, but there might be small stuffs like, as you said, positions. Just the fact that some people might not know that one center and two centers matter a lot. Because if you have like two utils, one center, picking 3 or 4 centers, you'll probably have a lot of days where you will have to not you'll not be able to play all the centers.
Yeah,
So that's a waste of stats. Plus the fact that one center league will skew the centers higher in the draft position, because
yeah,
it's hard to not one center, two centers, like two center leagues. You will have It's
yeah.
hard to find very solid centers.
Centers. Yeah,
Yeah, so if you have two center leagues, you will not need only two centers. You probably need three centers, or maybe
or
four,
four.
or
Yeah,
four. The fourth one might be the power forward center, or the third or fourth one might be the one with multiple eligibility positions. No, so that's very important. Plus, another thing is, of course, the most basic. I think you should know if you're head-to-head roto or points league, right? I mean, I
yeah,
assume at least that part, the managers already ask before they join. No, they should know that. Now, aside from the positions, I think the number of moves also is
yeah,
important. Like if you only have 3 moves a week, or maybe just 2 moves a week, or just maybe limited moves for the season, drafting an injury-prone lineup might not be the way to do it. I mean, if you
yeah,
started off with, let's say, Kawhi, and then you put Zion there and everything there, and then you'll be hard pressed to make up for their lost games during the week. And also, how many ILs? Do you have IL
yeah.
plus? Do you have,
Yeah.
two ILs or two IL plus, one IL, one IL plus? That's important also because in IL plus, as you said, even just a flu or whatever or game time decision, you can put that player there. But in
Yeah.
IL, you cannot. So you should know that
Yeah.
also. That will help you decide if you're gonna take a risk on injury prone players or not. So
Especially
they're very
those
important.
players who are injured at the start, right? Those players
Yeah,
who won't play at the start.
yeah,
Are you gonna waste your how high are you gonna pick them? That's where you decide, right? If you have
yes.
only one IL plus, it's so hard to pick them higher because that means you'll be stuck. You'll only have them, for the half of the season because the half. If one of your healthy players gets injured, it's going to be tougher for you to play around with that slot,
And
right?
another
So I
thing,
think
playoff format and schedule.
yeah.
Now, playoff
Schedule.
format,
About to go. I was about to go to that. Yeah, they go
yeah,
hand in
playoff,
hand.
yeah,
Settings,
but
schedule, and
playoff
playoffs.
format, this is something underrated. What if you don't have like, some leagues have prize money for the top of the eliminations. Some leagues
Mm-hmm.
have buys. But if you don't have any of those, just the top eight, for me, you can be more, risk taking. You just need you can gamble on Jamoran, for instance, who's out for 25 teams. Because you just need to get to the top eight. When you just have to survive and then make it to the top eight because there's no incentive anyways. So unlike if there's like only let's say top six out of 14, you'll have to be more conservative because it's eight more teams will be out than teams making the playoffs. So you cannot risk too much. I think that's how
Yeah,
that's how I approach it, with playoff format.
yeah. The format plus the playoff schedule.
Playoff
I
schedule, yeah.
think that's where a lot of the managers also look into playoff schedule. Like, when is the playoff schedule? When is your playoffs? Right? Is it week 19, week 20,
20, yeah.
21? Right? So that plays a role. I don't know how big. Does it have a big impact on your drafting?
No, not really. Not really. I don't. Yeah, I know some people say, we said before also that you should have you should already know the playoff schedule of top players before you draft, so that if there are two players you're choosing, just get the one with the better playoff schedule. But fantasy changes also. Nowadays
Yeah,
there's more and more. By that time, for one, that player might not be playing for that team anymore. There's a chance, with the trades and
yeah,
everything. Load management is really something else right now. So at times I just pick the best player really, without looking at that playoff schedule as much. Although
yeah.
I still study it, but it doesn't, it's not the biggest factor anymore, unlike
Yeah.
before.
It's
Yeah,
just it helps you, like you said, if two players of the same caliber, same stat set, same skill
yeah.
set, maybe picking the better playoff schedule would help. As I always say, before you get to the playoffs, you have to win or get into the playoffs
Make it to
and
the
make sure
playoffs
you
first.
right. So even if you
Yeah.
have a players who I've seen teams where they've drafted, players with good playoff schedule and then they miss out on the playoffs or they lose in the first round. I mean that those things hurt as well. So you have to make sure you make it to the playoffs and build that team.
But I have an example. The Clippers, I think 2 seasons ago, had like in a certain
Last
three
year,
week
I think
span.
last year is it last year?
They had, I think, 8 games only in 3 week span. They had a 2 game, 3 game, 3 game. I think that one, at least you'll know that that's really bad. That's really bad.
Yeah,
And do not think that you can pick those players and just trade them. If you're in a veteran league, everybody knows. Everybody knows already that, hey,
yeah.
why are you trading this guy? So
Playoff
do
schedule is
not,
one of the
yeah.
things that every pretty much in a very experienced league, everyone knows that
Everyone
the playoff
knows.
schedule.
Yeah.
So yeah, playoff schedule settings. I think that's it. Anything else we missed?
Depth charts. That's very important.
Depth chart.
For me, if you're preparing for drafts, actually that's the first one I do. You asked a while ago, how do I start? Where do I start when I make my preparations? I don't even go to rankings or tiers yet. I go with depth chart, team per team. I study the I don't just go to a site and look at their depth chart. I look at the whole roster and then identify certain, bottleneck positions, or, let's say the shooting guard position is up for grabs. There's not a clear cut starter. So you study all those things because those are where you will see opportunities for certain players to grab the
Yeah.
opening starting position, let's say. So depth charts for me is really, really important. And then maybe checking, okay, let's say for instance, Indiana's Obi Toppin and then Jarvis Walker, the rookie. That's a match. That's a position battle that's very, very intriguing. So you can say, oh, I think Obi will be the starter. Yes, that's possible. He will be the starter. But you should also not discount the rookie. You have to decide, is he's a starter, how many minutes will he play? Will it be 27 minutes and then 21 for the rookie, or 30 and 18? Those are important also. So team by
But
team,
sometimes it's
that's
so
what you
hard to figure that out, especially for players like those.
Yeah, but I think that's why when you do depth charts, you think about who's the coach. Is it a new coach? Is it like
Yeah.
Steve Clifford, who likes rookies, who hates rookies, who doesn't play rookies? Or is it somebody who likes to play a lot of players? Or is it somebody who plays just like, Nick Nurse plays 5 players only? Where is Nick Nurse now? He's in a new team. So that will factor into your, study of depth charts for that team. I think it's in Philadelphia, right? So that will factor in. Like when we talk
Yeah.
about the depth charts, you'll see
I
how
think
that
factor
factors in.
in it's more important than maybe a preseason or a training camp or preseason game. Because sometimes preseason games are quite deceiving. You get to see a little more, I guess. But what you see is not really the minutes, but how certain players play. That's where if I watch preseason games, if there's some players performing, I watch how they play. If it can translate to the NBA game, if it's going to be sustainable enough, right? Because a lot of the preseason game can be deceiving when it comes to
It
this guy played well during the preseason. He's probably getting a lot of minutes this year, right?
no, yeah.
Sometimes it's
Don't
not the
think of it that
case.
way. Yeah, depends on the team. Depends on the team. Some teams are like that even during the preseason, but some teams don't. But one thing for sure, preseason is still better than summer league.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
whatever you saw in summer league, that's I
You
mean,
forget about those,
it could translate, but the chances are still smaller, way smaller than a preseason.
except for the lottery picks. Except for the lottery picks, I
Even the
think.
lottery picks, sometimes they play so well in the summer league, but when the regular season starts, it's different. But sometimes it also happens like Jabari last year. He struggled in the summer league. He struggled in regular season. So there was a correlation. But I think what you can get from these summer league preseason, more of the trends. No, not the minutes, not who gets a lot of minutes, more the trends. Like Jabari last year struggled field goal. And people were thinking, it's just a preseason, it's just a summer league. But it translated until the regular season. So maybe, field goal percentage, turnover prone or not, are they good in steals or blocks? You can find those trends in the preseason and the summer league. That's what you can get. No more than they scoring 30 points, getting 40 minutes or something. Those
Yeah,
those might not translate into the actual games.
yeah. So yeah, again, those are deceiving. So you can list you probably know more about the preseason games or preseason effects, right? The effects of the preseason on certain players. Lastly, we talked about the preseason games. The World Cup, how big of a factor a player playing the World Cup would be for
Yeah,
fantasy. Because
there
I've
is a
seen,
little.
Anthony Edwards, one of the players that's moving really high up there.
Oh, I don't I don't really look at their performance in the World Cup a lot for the top players. I mean, I know what they can do. I know what I don't. I'm not really swayed by Anthony Edwards playing well in the World Cup, or even Austin Reeves being such a big.
Austin Reeves,
Yeah, what I really care about the World Cup is the fact that there's wear and tear in their bodies already at this stage. I mean, remember, it ends on September 10. They go. I think training camp starts 2 to 3 weeks after that, and then there will be
Mm.
preseason and then the regular season already. So it's nonstop already from here on. Injuries very important in fantasy. So those who played in the World Cup will be. I will think twice. I'm not saying I'm not drafting them. Of course, it's okay, but still, a part of me will want to make sure that there is no injuries, or they're not the older players that might be more injury prone because they played in this
In
World Cup.
fairness, there's not a lot of old players, at least from the
That's true.
USA
That's
squad
true. Yeah.
there. Maybe some older guys like Vucevic is playing. Who else?
Vucevic, Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Yeah, Bogdan.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't played much anyway, so I
Well,
don't think his draft stock would move up, right?
Lee Kyer,
Uh,
Kyle Anderson. uh,
Kyle Anderson, another
yeah.
player playing for China. Yeah, but again,
I
I am pretty
World Cup
sure a
is
lot
the
of the World Cup performances would impact some of the draft, especially drafting now.
Well, true, but for me, that's the last place I will even consider. I mean, that's the least priority in factoring. Whether this guy will have a breakout season or not. The World Cup is not even should not even be part of the equation. The rules are different. They're playing with different teams, different situations. So they should not really look at that.
Yeah. All right, that's it. That's it. Part 1 of our draft primer, pre-draft preparations. What you need to do to prepare for your actual drafts. Hope this one would help you. We changed it up a little bit past seasons where we talked about depth chart right away. Hopefully this one helps you, and then later on we'll probably talk about the actual draft, what happened during an actual, because a lot of these things, the rankings, what we've talked about, sometimes on the actual draft, you throw them out the window because certain things get in the way, like your emotions, your bias for certain players. We'll talk more about that in the next episode. All right, but for now, please subscribe in our YouTube channel, Fantasy Benchwarmers, and follow us on Twitter, FBW_podcast, and Tomish is FBW_com_Eric. And we'll see this again on the next episode. Bye, guys.